What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. This episode of Pick Six is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I didn't get to say it yesterday. Breech did. I was, what do you say? I was on the lanai. We had scheduling issues. Anywho, Sully, congratulations. You're now married. Let's see the ring, buddy. Show us that ring.
This is the rubber one. I got the gold one upstairs. This one is just way.
It's like running this to my car.
Get a little tight already. I don't know. It's just this one is a little bit looser for me. But
I don't know about you, Breech, and Sully, you'll experience this, but it's like if you have a big night. It's like you're like, yeah, that's how I know I got drunk last night. The ring is tight on that finger.
That's when the gold one's on, that's when you know it's a little fancy. But no, this honestly one's way easier to type with because the other one, I don't know if you guys deal with this too, but writer problems. I get like a little clickety when on the ring hits my Mac when I was typing, and I'm like, I can't handle that.
It's funny, Solly. I actually take my ring off when I'm working. I mean, I work from home, so it's not a huge deal. But when we're traveling, it is a little bit different. So
Breech writes from the strip. Breech only exclusively writes from strip clubs, so it's like it's a little awkward. He's like, I don't know. What are you gonna do? It's awesome. That's congratulations.
Thanks,
sounds like you had a great time. 2
fun.
weeks gallivanting through Europe. Looked fantastic on Instagram. Love of your life. Blah 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 blah. All that great stuff.
And as we mentioned yesterday, Brinson lost $74,000 during North Carolina's first official day of gambling. Right?
That's exactly why he wasn't here yesterday. That's why. I mean, I'd do the same thing.
Man, it was pretty exciting. I actually my first bet. I haven't. The only thing there's a bonus bet. There's FanDuel, and I mean, there's a bunch of different operators here. They're all offering bonuses. I actually, and I'm not saying anything bad about FanDuel, of course, because DraftKings is doing it, and ESPN Bet did it to me because they were previously Barstool/Penn. I'd gone to Virginia for a wedding and had gone to Arizona for the Super Bowl, and had signed up with these companies, and had gotten the bonuses. And so it's not you don't get a new bonus when you're in a new state. You get it's like you've already signed up, but no, you do get I did get a bonus from DraftKings where it was up to $200 in bonus bets, or 50% of my bonus bets up to a $200 deposit or something like that.
Right.
So you can get $100, basically two $50 free bets. So I did that, and then I used my first ever. So I'll tell the story really quickly. I think it's kind of cool. But my buddy Scholes, who lives in Raleigh, is a friend of mine. Back in 2020, he had a bet on Hideki Matsuyama, first round leader at the Players Championship in March of 2020. Well, that's on a Thursday. So the Wednesday night, the NBA canceled all their games, and maybe have canceled their season at that point. And the PGA is like, no. We are playing golf. It's outside. We're not near each other. We're playing golf. And they played all the way around. And I think it may have been CT Pan, but the final golfer is on the 18th hole, and he has one putt left. But the rules of golf, PGA rules are if the final golfer finishes his round, it counts as an official round. So the PGA officials go sprinting out there whatever you do not putt that ball. And so but Scholes had Hideki Matsuyama, first round leader. Hideki had shot a 62 and was 4 strokes clear of everybody else. And then he had one putt to cash it. And then he got wiped out. So me, Scholes, and my other buddy Newman, we were on this text thread at the time. We did our first official wagers in North Carolina. Hideki Matsuyama, first round leader at the Players.
It had to be. It had to
on
be.
Thursday. So if Decky is hoisted, if Decky's in the number one on the leaderboard on Thursday.
I might have to tail that. That's a great story.
You should tail it. Yeah, no, it felt like that. And then of course my second legal bet in the state of North Carolina was an emotional hedge to bet on the North Carolina Tar Heels to win the national championship. So there you go. Legal tampering. You guys handled it. Tons of players moved, re-signed, traded. You guys covered it all yesterday. We got more deals done as soon as the mics were cut off. That's how it works. It was a really, really crazy Monday. Breech, how would you rate? We've done this a long time. How would you rate this free agency, like on a scale of 1 to 10, craziness so far?
I would put it at an 8. I feel like I kind of kick things off with the Russell Wilson signing on Sunday night. That's where I'm going to start what we've seen so far rather than noon on Monday. So you have Russell Wilson going to the Steelers. You have Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons. So literally switching teams, which I think, even though we kind of saw it coming, it was still somewhat surprising to see that get done. And then,
by the way, two guys in the same draft who also played against each other in the Big Ten championship game in 2011. Like, their careers have been very oddly intertwined.
Both lower round picks, day 2 and day 3. And then just the way the running back market, we've had all these big name switch teams, which we will talk about here in a second. So I do think, obviously you don't have a Tom Brady type free agency name out there like we did in 2020, but I think overall we've just seen so many names that if you're just a casual NFL fan, a lot of these names that have been signing deals over the past 24 hours. Yes, I think I would say 8. You don't think it's an 8?
I don't know. I feel like there's been
a Brian Burns trade.
Yeah. Those, I mean, there've been some big items, but I don't know. I feel like there wasn't anything like Max Unger for like Jimmy Graham, or I'm trying to think of some of the other bigger stuff. I don't know. It was definitely explosive and exciting. Don't get me wrong. I maybe like a 6.5 for me, I guess. But I mean, like, Sully, what about you? What do you think? I mean, how many years?
I'd probably split it between you guys, somewhere with a 7. I don't know if there's a lot of big names flying around. I think that this has probably a little bit more to do with like fantasy football than it does actual football. You're going to see a ton of running backs that you draft in the first round, all switch teams. You're freaking out. Oh man, is Kyle Pitts now going to be fantasy relevant because Kirk Cousins is now his quarterback? Like all of that stuff. But I don't know how much it's actually going to like impact the season. I think the biggest one obviously is Cousins, which I'm sure we'll touch on again, but that one's going to make them, as we were talking about yesterday, Breech, the favorites in that division. But I don't know if that's propelling them to a Super Bowl. Like, I don't think we're going that far. And so I don't know if we've had that move that says, okay, here comes X team that's now in that conversation. So I think you're seeing a lot of stars move around, but I think it's more fantasy football than actual football.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Like, and the running backs all like, this is a crazy running back carousel. So maybe I'll bump up to a 7. I think you maybe a little bit closer to y'all. I think that's true with all the running backs changing teams and sort of the drama that surrounds that. Jamar Chase tweeted out something cryptic, like, and every single reply is like Justin Jefferson, and then like the Super Bowl's in Louisiana. Like, can you imagine with Burrow, Chase, and Justin Jefferson with the New Orleans Super Bowl? Would be insane. So we're going to cover all those deals. We'll give you our winners and losers from our takes on who won day 1 of the tampering period. So let's get started. Derrick Henry to the Ravens. I think maybe this is like an 8, Breech. Maybe you're right. Derrick, Baltimore. I tweeted that this is like my number one. Man, I want this to happen. Please put Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry together. Run some read option. Derrick Henry's done it with Ryan Tannehill before. I'm not saying make it the Greg Roman offense full blown, but just incorporate that into this, whatever package they have. I think it's since 2018 when Lamar came in the NFL? 2017.
I think it was it 18 or 19? Yeah.
It was 18. Yeah, I think it was 18. Yeah, Daniel Jones was the 9th.
He won MVP in 19.
Yeah, that's right. The second year. So 18 was 18 was the Baker year, and then 19 was Daniel Jones' year. Because they took Barkley and then Daniel Jones. Whoops. So Lamar, since 2018, Derrick Henry leads the league in rushing yards. Everybody since 2018. And since 2018, Lamar Jackson leads all quarterbacks in rushing yards. And I'm pretty sure the Ravens have led all NFL teams in rushing yards. 2 different coordinators in that time, but that's their identity. And man, like, I think there's a chance that Derrick Henry summons sort of his inner King Henry, rejuvenated on a new team. I know he's older, but age and injuries don't scare me as much with Derrick Henry. How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I was saying yesterday. We were talking about what we desperately want to happen. Mine was Derrick Henry signing with the Baltimore Ravens. And, I did mention it earlier when we were discussing whether it was a 8, a 7, or a 6.5, that there might not be a move that propels a team to a Super Bowl. I don't know. This one kind of could. I should probably correct myself, because Derrick Henry in a playoff system, in a playoff style of football, that's just going to help Baltimore immensely. Close out games, churn out tough weather games. He's going to be awesome in this offense. When we're talking about Lamar Jackson, like you said, Brinson, but also like Keaton Mitchell too. Talk about lightning and thunder and just speed and power. With anything that they want to do on the ground, the Ravens are now going to be able to do it. We used to say that before too, but now you add somebody like this, I think it's going to help them throughout the season, but more so, I think it's going to help them in January and again, possibly February if everything goes right.
Yeah, I do think it's worth. I'm sorry, Breech. I was going to say, just on Keaton Mitchell, I do think it's worth noting, he had a bad injury late. So Justice Hill may be the baby lightning early on in that one, and then bring Keaton Mitchell along slowly.
As a notoriously known Bengals homer in these parts, this was the last move I wanted to see. I don't want Derrick Henry in Baltimore. I had my fingers crossed all day on Tuesday that this would not happen. I saw that Derrick Henry's trying to decide between this and not near making a decision. And in my head, I'm thinking, just stay away from Baltimore. And here he is signing with the Ravens. And it is really what he brings the offense is just something the Ravens haven't had. You have this, the thunder and lightning combos, what everybody wants. Derrick Henry's the thunder. Lamar Jackson's the lightning. Brinson, you mentioned the read option. It is how do you even go about stopping that? It is like trying to tackle a cat or a hippo. It's like neither of those are easy, because you certainly cannot tackle a hippo and you have to catch the cat. And so it just becomes this impossible thing that it really
would you rather have, if you're a linebacker, and by the way, Patrick Queen, guess what you're getting. If you're a linebacker, are you preferring the hippo or the cat, Breech? You kind of want to chase down the cat versus the hippo.
Yeah, I'm probably chasing down the cat and hoping I catch it, but who knows if I will. And Jonas Schaefer, because we've been talking about the read options, he had Derrick Henry's read option stats from 2022, 11 carries, 155 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not as many opportunities last year, but 11 carries for 155 yards is a crazy number, especially when you consider that teams weren't really worried about Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis taking off. Now that you have a quarterback where you actually have to worry about it. And the thing is, the Ravens don't even have to run the read option to be successful. You just give Derrick Henry the ball up the middle, and the defense has to respect that. So this totally the Ravens have been a top rushing team, as you guys mentioned, since Lamar's been there. But this totally changes what they can do on offense, and it adds another layer to their already impressive running game.
I just want to see this team in the red zone, but really inside the 10. Can you imagine what a nightmare that is? Not just what we're talking about with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, but when you start to add what Zay Flowers can do on a pop pass, or you have Mark Andrews in the red zone as well, a top option for Lamar Jackson in the receiving game. To me, it's just such a nightmare that he now presents and how physical they can be. I just think that this team's going to really take off if everything stays healthy.
Yep. The Ravens did suffer a loss. So they had Patrick Queen, just real quickly while we're talking Ravens. Patrick Queen signed with the Steelers. I mean, I don't know. Go get your money wherever you can get your money. And the Steelers needed some help at linebacker. But Buddy Rowe, when you leave, there wasn't anybody out. The Panthers were trying to sign him. You really just don't want to take the Panthers' money and not go play for the Steelers. That to me is the ultimate Benedict Arnold move. I mean, Breech, it would be like somebody from the Bengals going to play for the Browns, right?
I mean, here's how I feel is that I think that both Patrick Queen and Geno Stone probably thought the Ravens should have given them better offers. And when they didn't, it did become, hey, we have a bone to pick with you now. And now we want to go. Brinson, this is your classic revenge game scenario.
Oh, I know, buddy.
Not just Patrick Queen with the Steelers, but you also have Geno Stone with the Bengals. And that's what I think these guys want to face that Ravens offense twice a year. And I think so that probably played into their thinking when they were looking at the offers that were out there on the table was, hey, look, if you're Patrick Queen, I get to play with TJ Watt. That's who the offenses are going to be worrying about. This is a 10-win Steelers team. I'm going to make this already good defense better. And if you're Geno Stone, you're thinking the same thing. I'm going to a team that has been to the AFC title game in 2 of the past 3 years. So of course I want to play with them, and I get to beat up on the Ravens twice a year. So yeah, I think the Queen and Stone moves are interesting though, just from a revenge perspective. I do wonder how much that played a factor in their decision.
I also just love that theme in general that we have this free agent cycle. I mean, we're talking about it from a Steelers, in AFC North perspective, but even with with Aaron Jones, who we'll talk about going to Minnesota, you have Saquon staying in the division, going to Philadelphia.
There is a lot of revenge.
There's a lot of spice. There's a lot of spice.
Yeah, there sure is. I love revenge so freaking much. Let's get to day one, winners and losers. We'll dive into the rest of the deals in a minute as well. Breech, give me your day one winner.
My day one winners, because I have multiple, actually it's a group of people. It is running backs. Look, they had a dead market last year, absolutely nothing. And now here they are just getting deals left and right. We obviously just talked about Derrick Henry. We mentioned Aaron Jones. We mentioned Saquon Barkley, but then we saw Josh Jacobs get a nice, even if he only lasts in Green Bay for 1 year, I think he's going to get $14 million. That's a heck of a contract. Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, just all these guys waited that 1 year thinking, my God, is there going to be a deal? Are people actually going to pay us this year? Because no one paid us last year. And here we are where we had a bunch of these guys switch teams and get paid. So good for you, running backs.
Yeah, Sully, I mean, I think the drama surrounding the running backs is interesting too, just because of, as you point out, Sully, like all the different all the guys switching teams. Like it's fantasy football. People are probably winners because you got all this like different movement amongst these guys. How do you rank them? People are going to say, like, is Aaron Jones like too banged up? Is Josh Jacobs washed? Like, a lot of different things. Sully, who's your winner from day one?
My winner is, it's clear cut. It's the Atlanta Falcons. They were able to get their quarterback in Kirk Cousins. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, Breech, that like, obviously you do have to throw in the caveat that this dude is going to be 36 and coming off an Achilles. Like there is that element to it. So we don't necessarily know for certain that he's going to be Kirk Cousins, but if he's anywhere close, he's better than any quarterback they've had since Matt Ryan. And when we finally see this offense live up to its potential at the skill positions, whether it's Drake London, Kyle Pitts, or Bijan Robinson, or even extended to today, them signing Darnell Mooney, I just really like the direction that this offense is going now that they have a quarterback that's capable of getting all of these guys the ball. Even if he's not 100%, he'll be smart enough to deploy the ball where it needs to go and just get the ball into the hands of these playmakers. I think it's going to be a much better offense. I think Atlanta's now the team to beat in that division. I just think it's a great move for Cousins too, because it's a better offensive line than he had in Minnesota.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, look, that Falcons would have been my choice for winners. If I was going first, or I filled in the blank before you did. They went and got, Kirk Cousins didn't really it's not a poison pill, but the part of it, when he restructured his contract last offseason, it basically said the Vikings were going to have to re-sign him before Wednesday. And Cousins like, no, I'm going to explore my options. And I think the Falcons were willing to give him the contract he wanted. I said this on HQ, and like, excuse me, Chris Hassel sort of like called me insane for it. But do you think that you could kind of say Atlanta? And I was sort of thinking this in football terms, not necessarily like just the pure city, but Atlanta's like kind of similar to like a Minnesota, like a southern version of Minnesota, just in this, or Minneapolis, just in the sense it's like there's not a ton of media attention. You're playing in a dome. You've got this like sort of a low, like I don't know, it seems like a similar fit to what he had in Minneapolis. Like he can go to a Braves game and nobody's going to be bugging him. I don't know. Am I crazy for that take?
Well, I know what you're saying. He's not going to Philadelphia. He's not going to Boston. He's not going to New York.
Right.
Where the microscope is on you so much. I mean, like the towns are totally different, but
right.
From a sports environment, I get
say like Minneapolis and Atlanta are similar cities because they're really, really not. They're very different in like the way that they're set up in like the suburbs and all of that. And then of course like Minneapolis, anyway, the point being is that like I think there's similar franchise, I don't know. There's just something similar and like comforting about it, I think. And if you're Kirk Cousins, you get a huge paycheck, Breech, and you go to a team where you can contend.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins has to be thrilled knowing he upgraded the offensive line, which is probably the thing he loves most considering he's coming off an Achilles injury. We talked a lot about the weapons. We're going to talk about another weapon that he added a little bit later, so I won't mention that receiver's name. But yeah, I think if you're Kirk Cousins, if you're the Atlanta Falcons, you have to be thrilled. I mean, this is a team that just really since the past 2 years that are trying to figure out who their starting quarterback is. They just haven't been relevant. You have 3 straight 7-10 seasons. They haven't had a winning season since 2017. And so for me, and this kind of goes to what Brinson says, is the bar's not very high. If Kirk Cousins goes 9-8 next season, no one in Atlanta is going to complain. They're going to be thrilled because they have 7 straight losing seasons or 6 straight losing seasons, whatever the number is. So that's the bar. Get them 9-8, and everyone in Atlanta will be happy for at least 2024.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I was kind of bouncing around on my winners and losers. I'm gonna give 2 names actually in the same division. I'm gonna say that Sam Darnold, late night ad by the Minnesota Vikings, I guess, which we'll get to in a minute. But technically a Monday ad, I think, right? Day 1? Wasn't Sam Darnold day 1 or is he day 2?
Yeah, fine. Give him day 1. Whatever.
No, we'll do day 1, and I'll say that we'll do day 2 for Sam Darnold. Then I'll say a day 1 winner is the Green Bay Packers. And I know they lose Aaron Jones, who they love, but they go out and, I was reading Ty Dunn at golongtd.com, and he was sort of talking, he used to cover the Packers, and he has Bob again working there as well, but he was writing, he thinks that, he talked to Brian Gutekunst, who said, not necessarily going to shove all in on this season just because Jordan Love had this great first year as a starter and they go and winning playoff game, but they did shove all in. They went and got Josh Jacobs, who, when healthy, can lead the league in rushing. And Aaron Jones, great player, dynamic player. The contractual stuff with Aaron Jones, they didn't want to miss out on a running back. That was the other problem. I read a report out there that essentially it was in The Athletic with Matt Schneiderman and Diana Rossini, but they basically did not want to miss out on a running back like Jacobs because the way that the Packers operate, they gave Aaron Jones their final offer, like their highest offer, to redo his deal. And Jones was going back and forth on it. They didn't want to go sign Jacobs and have Aaron Jones then say, yeah, I'll take that offer and sign the offer. So they pulled the offer to Jones and told him they were going to cut him. And that's when they went and got Jacobs. So I love both players. Different players. Aaron Jones more dynamic in the passing game. I think Jacobs is maybe a better fit if you really want to pound the ball. And then Xavier McKinney, who they go out and sign as a in terms of the safety. I think they just go down spending on both sides of the ball. And then they have Jeff Hafley there, who's a major upgrade for defensive coordinator. So I'll throw the Packers as a day 1 winner.
Yeah, I'll agree with you with that. I mean, I was saying it yesterday that the Packers have been trying to find a new running back, a high upside running back for basically a year. I mean, they were in on Jonathan Taylor when he was having contract issues and, weren't able to get something done, but they clearly were looking to upgrade or get younger at that position. And they do that here with Josh Jacobs. And the fact that you get rid of AJ Dillon and you get rid of Aaron Jones, like I think I said it yesterday, it was like 320 carries that are now up for grabs in that offense. So, I do think that he is going to be a fascinating addition for them. And as I think you were kind of alluding to, right? It's, as impressive as Jordan Love was last year, I don't think you just open up the offense and say, here you go, kid. Right. You still need to have a stable running game to support him. I mean, he's really only going into his 2nd year as the full-time starter, even though it's probably year 5 or 6 for him in reality.
Yeah, and I like that the Packers are being aggressive because when you stare at their division right now, you have to be. It is the Vikings have no idea what they're doing at quarterback right this second. We don't know. They're probably going to try and draft someone, but I don't know that Sam Darnold is your best bet for a starter in 2024. The Bears, I mean, maybe
everyone loves the Bears yet again in this offseason. I mean,
I don't think anyone's going to be picking the Bears to win the division. So right now it feels like a 2-horse race, and the Packers just keep getting stronger. And I think a lot of people, based on what the Packers have done over the past 24 hours, will pick Green Bay to win the division this year. So I agree, Brinson. I like what they've done so far.
Yeah, I think it'd be a 50-50 split with Green Bay and Detroit. I agree with you, Breech. There'll be some Bears people out there and some Vikings people too, but largely between the Packers and the Lions. That's a good call. All right, let's go to losers. Sully, who's your loser from day 1 of free agency? Are you going to stick in the division with us?
I will, because it's Justin Fields, and it's bleeding into today too, because we're just seeing all these kind of backup quarterback dominoes starting to fall. But this dude's market is really starting to shrink. I mean, obviously, Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta, that was a big team that we all looked at to say, okay, you're outside of the quarterback window in the draft. Could this be a possible destination for Justin Fields? That immediately gets sucked away because obviously Kirk Cousins goes there. We were talking about it, Breech, yesterday, like, oh, could that be a spot for the Raiders? And they signed Gardner Minshew. And so I don't know if that's going to preclude them from going after Fields, but it does feel like they may go rookie quarterback and have Justin Fields, Gardner Minshew as kind of their veteran to steer the ship there while that guy gets ready to go. I just don't know where he lands. I don't know what spot really makes sense for him, because you look at the top of the draft, I think New England's drafting a quarterback. I think Washington's drafting a quarterback. So there are two QB needy teams that could go for Fields, but have other options. I just don't know where that starting spot is for him right now.
We probably should have seen it. Sorry, but you probably should have seen it coming, by the way, when the Monday after the combine, all the Monday with like Albert Beer's column, he had it the year before with like the Bears. Here's what they wanted to trade for the number one overall pick. And he's like, the Bears really don't want a first round pick. They really just take a 2 and a 3 and they'll be good. It's like, this is weird. Like they don't think they can get a very good market for Justin Fields.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that every team that might have needed a quarterback, almost every single one of them has filled their spot. I mean, the Commanders brought in Marcus Mariota. The Patriots brought in Jacoby Brissett. The Falcons, obviously, Kirk Cousins. The Vikings just signed Sam Darnold. The Raiders just signed Gardner Minshew. The Giants just signed Drew Lock. The Steelers just got Russell Wilson. I mean, we're talking about every landing spot is taken out. I think maybe you could say the Broncos, but I don't think that Justin Fields' skill set fits with what Sean Payton wants to do on offense. So I'm not sure that is a good fit. And then the Seahawks maybe could go after a quarterback, but I can't see them trading and giving up draft capital to get Justin Fields, especially when you still have guys out there. You still have Jimmy Garoppolo soon. You still have Ryan Tannehill. So I don't know who is going to get Justin Fields. And even if you want him, who's going to give up a lot of compensation? I can't see him going for more than like a 3rd or 4th round pick now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's like, it almost feels like collusion by the rest of the league to like submerge Justin Fields' value, or it's just like, the reality of the situation is this: Justin Fields is an exciting and thrilling player who has put together some really spectacular highlights, but maybe a bunch of the teams who need a quarterback are thinking like, all right, this guy, you got to pay this guy. And we're not even sure if he's good. We didn't love his tape coming out, et cetera. There's all these different ways. And, you go get Drew Lock for nothing and then try and draft somebody. So, yeah, I think Fields a big-time loser. I'll get mine real quick just because it's in the same division. And it basically pairs up with Sully's winner from earlier. I think the Minnesota Vikings are a loser. I mean, you just couldn't get Kirk Cousins signed. And like, I like the idea of Sam Darnold. We'll get to him in a minute. But, and I like the idea of Aaron Jones, and I think that Kevin O'Connell is a really good coach. We'll get the most out of these guys, but at the same time, you have this, you basically backed yourself into this corner where you couldn't sign Kirk Cousins, and he walks away to Atlanta. You'll get a comp pick, I assume, at some point. But man, I mean, it's just a tough spot for Minnesota.
Yeah, but it also felt like there was a moment there probably like a year ago where like they didn't want to sign him. And it was, we're going to see all our options and all of that. And then all of a sudden it turned into, wait a minute, this is our only option. We should probably try to keep this guy. And it blew up in their face. So I really do think they mismanaged that entire situation with Cousins and didn't have a contingency. I know that, they came out with a statement yesterday saying like, we have contingencies in place, but when your contingency is Sam Darnold, that means you're scrambling. That is not something that you prepared yourself wholeheartedly for like 2+ years. It's not just that you knew that his free agency was coming, but he's also a 35-year-old quarterback that you were ushering in. At a certain point, you should be drafting and developing and trying to find that next guy. I think that ultimately they're going to draft somebody. I think it's 11 overall that they have. Maybe that's like JJ McCarthy, but they have to be very careful because you have a superstar in Justin Jefferson who has already publicly said that he wanted to see how the Kirk Cousins situation played out before he made his decision on signing this mega extension. If he doesn't like what you do, and if he doesn't love Sam Darnold, that opens a can of worms that they might not want.
And then the other part of this is Jonathan.
Traded for T. Higgins. Traded for T. Higgins in a draft, in the Bengals' first or second round draft pick. T. Higgins signs a deal immediately with Minnesota, and you have this LSU reunion. Breach. What would your head do if that happened?
Well, with the Super Bowl in New Orleans, it'd be a perfect fit. It'd be a great reunion between Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and Justin Jefferson in the Big Easy. But it's not just quarterbacks. The Vikings, we talked about this yesterday. Jonathan Greenard's been their biggest signing so far. And he was someone, as we mentioned, the kind of the red flags there are his career year came in a contract year when you want to see 4 years worth of production versus one. And he's really had, I guess, 1.5 good years. And then the other part of that is you have the Texans who are coached by a defensive coach, a former defensive coordinator, and they do not just let great pass rushers walk out the door. So when they let them leave,
especially with tons of money to spend.
Exactly. So I that kind of caught my eye a little bit, especially because I do think even though he did look good last season, I think he's a slight downgrade from Danielle Hunter. So yeah, definitely. I'm on the same page with you there, Brinson, with the Vikings.
Who's your loser, Breechbot?
Breechbot 3000. I'm turning on the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh no.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but absolutely the Cowboys are my loser. It mostly becomes Jerry Jones hyped this team up so much this offseason. At the Senior Bowl, he said he was going to go all in on 2024. Well, here's what all in means in Dallas. Here is the Cowboys have made more news for a Dak Prescott extortion plot than anything else over the past 24 hours. They have made one signing since the tampering period started. They re-signed their long snapper. That is it. That is the only signing they have. They're one of 5 teams so far through 4:30 p.m. That has not signed an outside free agent. So I don't know what the Cowboys are doing. I know they don't have a lot of money. I do get that. But eventually you got to make a move. I know they were in the market for Zach Moss. And guess what? $4 million per year for Zach Moss. That was too rich for their blood. They backed out, let him go to Cincinnati. So the Cowboys, Breechbot has no longer Breechbot.
I'm getting weird, I'm a Red Sox fan. I'm getting weird flashbacks to when they said they were going to go full throttle this offseason. Jerry Jones's comments are basically the same thing. Nothing's happened so far. Now, granted, it is early. They obviously still have the NFL draft. But not only are they not doing anything, but they're losing players too. Like Tony Pollard, it's not just that he was, obviously it was kind of a disappointing year for him as he was assuming the feature back role. But he's still a dude that produced in this offense for a few years. And I don't know where they go to replace that. All of these running backs are kind of coming off the board here. I don't know what that next move is for them. I thought it could be like Joe Mixon. I thought that would make some sense.
Or Derrick Henry.
Or Derrick Henry, sure.
Austin Eckler. A lot of these guys would look good in Cowboys uniforms.
I don't know where they go at this point.
Yeah, I don't either. I agree with the Cowboys losers. And it just goes to show that Jerry's not running anything in Dallas anymore. He's talking about how, it's we're going all in, and then he doesn't do anything. Stephen Jones is in charge there. All right, a lot of deals from day 2 that we got to hit. We'll do that after the break. Next.
And the crowd goes crazy.
Okie doke. We are going to rip through a little day 1 cleanup and then get to some bigger deals starting. Here's just notable. Zach Moss to the Bengals, 2 years and $8 million. Breach, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up. I like it.
All right. Javon Kinlaw to the Jets. We don't have terms today yet. Frankie Louvu to the Commanders. We got Xavier McKinney to the Packers, I mentioned. Aziz Al-Sharir to the Texans. Austin Eckler to the Commanders. Quarterback carousel features Jacoby Brissett to the Patriots. Tyrod Taylor to the Jets. That's a great upside play, by the way, as a backup. And, of course, Sam Darnold to the Vikings, now possibly the starter. Funny that Brissett could end up maybe going up against Drake May in training camp after going up against Sam Howell in training camp in Washington. And then, of course, did you guys cover the Brian Burns trade?
We did not. I think that happened right as we were finishing.
Well, let me just tell you that the Panthers – they've done a good job signing some offensive linemen so far in free agency, but my God, they got less back in a Brian Burns trade than they gave up to get Sam Darnold 3 years ago. They got they had 2 firsts and a second on the table for Brian Burns 18 months ago, and just got a second and a 5th rounder for him. It is so patently and blatantly obvious that David Tepper was like, no, we won't trade Brian Burns. He's a franchise player. I don't care for 2 first-round picks. Any non-quarterback you get a chance to trade for 2 first-round picks, you do it. You don't care who the team is. Like, it's just in your division. You don't care. He didn't do it. And then when Brian Burns and Todd Francis' agent wouldn't agree to take the Panthers' highest deal because they wouldn't pay him above $30 million, the two sides got so far apart that David Tepper was like, screw this guy. Trade him for whatever you get, Dan, because they were going to lose him for a compensatory pick in the end of the 3rd round if he did play it out this year because they weren't going to franchise tag him again. So now David Tepper's ruined another part of the Panthers. It's unbelievable. This guy is the worst owner in the NFL by a mile.
That was a great rant. And you know what, Brinson? Let me ask you guys this. How many players in the entire NFL right now would you not give up for 2 first-round picks? I mean, 5? Yeah. I mean, who's not trading someone for 2 first-round picks? That's just insanity.
And remember, the Rams ended up being terrible that year, so they would have been like a top 10 pick. They would have those. They wouldn't have traded up for Brian. I mean, the fact that they. I think it's Scott Barrett I think he's a Fantasy Points, maybe. He has a tweet out there where he combined the Brian Burns trade, the Darnell trade, the Christian McCaffrey trade, and it's like, what in the absolute F, dude?
It's gross. I love the rant. It's making you mad. It's also making my boy Luke Combs mad. It's a bad time to be a Panthers fan right now, and ultimately, I don't know how you get out of it because you have an owner that's so meddling. Like, it's not like, okay, you just have to draft a new quarterback or fire a head coach or something like that. This dude's not going away. He's got to change his ways, and that's tough to do for a billionaire. Yep,
and he promoted Dan Morgan, former first-round pick for the Panthers, to GM from assistant GM. So, like, he just can't not be involved in these decisions. I think that's part of it. But it took Jimmy Haslam a long time to do it in Cleveland. It's clearly taking David Tepper a long time to do it in Carolina, and at some point I guess it'll boil over and he'll learn his lesson. It ain't happening right now, though. I'll tell you that much. I think the Panthers will be a better team this year. We'll see what they do with that 2nd round pick. They could potentially get a wide receiver there. They should be involved in Calvin Ridley. They should give up one of their 2nd round picks for T. Higgins, honestly. But I think just in general, they'll have to be better than a 2-win team. But man, this is Panthers fans. You ain't gonna be good for a while. All right.
On that T. Higgins note, though, JJ did report this morning that, as much as speculation as there is, because I think they have like 39 and 33 or something like that. There's been no talks, talks, and
that tracks me. So the Bengals are probably just gonna let him play it's the Bengals. They're like, no, you're playing on the franchise tag, and then you're gonna go to free agency, and we'll get a comp pick for you. All right.
I could not see them trading it. They would have to get a 1st-round pick minimum in return to even
or Justin Jefferson
Jefferson.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Speaking of the Bengals, they did make a trade. They traded Joe Mixon to the Houston Texans for a 7th round pick, essentially a conditional 7th round pick. The Texans have to win the Super Bowl 4 years in a row for the Bengals to get against. No, that's not really a condition, but they were going to cut Joe Mixon. And Breech, you take it away. You talk about this thing.
Yeah, here's what I think about this one is that if you're the Bengals, this is great because you were going to cut him and get nothing, and now you trade him and you get the 7th round pick. We don't know what the conditions are. Maybe this can move up to a 6th or 5th round pick and we don't know if Mixon has a huge year in Houston. Yeah. So if you're the Bengals, you save this money no matter what. I think it was $6.1 million, and now you get a draft pick, and then you just flip that $6 million to sign Zach Moss, basically, who got the 2-year, $8 million contract. And for the Texans, look, they let Devin Singletary walk in free agency. They weren't thrilled with what he was doing. I think that Mixon can be a good fit in this offense. But the thing is, it's not like you just signed him to a long-term deal. You gave up a 7th round pick to have Mixon for 1 year. If he crushes it in the offense, you sign him to a long-term deal. If he does not crush it, he doesn't play well in the offense, he's not a good fit, then you say, all right, bye-bye, man. Go find a new team next year.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Low risk, high reward. And even if you don't want to pay him, okay, fine. You had a great year with Joe Mixon, or you didn't. And it doesn't really, you can just walk away after 2024, and it's really no skin off your back. And I think it's an upgrade. I think that this, this is no shock here, but everybody's going to love the Texans going into this season. Everybody's going to have them to win the division. But I do love what they are building on offense. I mean, I love their offensive line. Obviously, Stroud's great. The fact that you've improved your running game with Joe Mixon, I just think that this is going to be a team, as long as there's no, second-year slump or anything like that with C.J. Stroud, this is an offense that could really hum.
Yeah, I think Joe Mixon's he's okay. He's fine.
He's better than what they had, though. That's what I'm saying.
He's a plotter. They need to add somebody who's a little more of a scat back type. But I mean, look, Mixon's had his moments. Maybe he takes off.
Pass in the Super Bowl.
There you go. Caught a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. That's fantastic.
Through one.
That's right. Threw a touchdown pass. It's a fine move, low risk. I don't think they'll sign. I think they'll use this as a bridge to go find a running back or two in the draft, and then that's who you roll with moving forward. Aaron Jones signs a 1-year, $7 million deal with the Vikings, joining a long list of spite Vikings headlined by Brett Favre when he famously went and played for Minnesota. Jones cut by – it's like you talked about it, Sully. Cut by the Packers, go to the Vikings, and you're going to play your old team twice a year. I will tell you right now, and I don't know that the other pieces will click that week when I'm doing my DFS, but you better believe I will be playing Aaron Jones against the Packers when he plays both weeks when he plays them in the regular season next year, because I think this is a prime blow up. Aaron Jones always lit up the Cowboys, and now he's going to light up the Packers.
Not only DFS, but you find his 100+ rushing yards or his 100+ total scrimmage yards, and you just hammer that. To me, that is an easy all-day bet, set and forget it. I'm doing that every single time, and I just love the spite factor with all of this. It's even more so than Saquon. It's fun to say, okay, he's in the division, he's with the Philadelphia Eagles. This one, he got cut less than 24 hours. I'm with your division rival. I'm rocking purple. And I just think that I think it's a fantastic move for the Vikings, independent of all this spite talk. They were a terrible rushing team last season. And if Aaron Jones is close to what we saw in Green Bay, obviously the last 5 weeks, the dude ran for over 100 yards in every game. If he's the Aaron Jones that we know, they're going to be a much better offense from a rushing standpoint, obviously, not counting that they lost Kirk Cousins.
And the one thing about Aaron Jones that plays into your guys' revenge thing is you look at what he was offered. The Packers were going to keep him if he's willing to take a pay cut. And Matt Schneiderman from The Athletic has the exact number. So he had an $11 million base salary. And this is the difference between Jones and Barkley, is that obviously Barkley was hitting free agency. So it's the Giants are like, all right, we're going to let you walk. The Packers had to say, you know what, we're cutting you. We know what you've done for us, but we don't want you anymore. And so $11 million base salary, the Packers wanted to cut that down to $4 million. So just totally slashes base salary. There would have been $2 million in incentives. The Vikings are giving him $6 million base salary with $1 million in incentives. So it's a no-brainer for Aaron Jones. And like you guys said,
I hope one of the incentives is if you $250,000 every time you rush for 100+ yards against the Packers
for one touchdown against the Packers.
Yeah, exactly. All right, moving along. Darnell Mooney, Breech, you teased it earlier. 3 years, $39 million for the not effing around Atlanta Falcons, who are making it rain in free agency. So now you have on offense, you have a really good offensive line up there. It's a very good offensive line. You have Kirk Cousins under center, Bijan Robinson at running back, Drake London and Darnell Mooney at wide receiver. Really nice compliments. And then Kyle Pitts at tight end, and they're probably going to add somebody else at wide receiver. This is an offense that with Zach Robinson calling the plays, Breech, I am extremely intrigued.
Yeah, you look at – people are going to look at Darnell Mooney's numbers and say, hey, look, they weren't very big, but he was stuck in Chicago, who runs the ball every other play. The Bears finished top 2 in rushing in the NFL in each of the past 2 seasons. But despite that, Mooney still put up over 400 yards in each of those seasons. But this is a guy who does have a 1,000-yard receiving season under his belt that happened in Chicago with Justin Fields and Andy Dalton throwing him the ball. If there's Andy Dalton slander coming from my mouth, it's a big deal here. So it is impressive what he's done. And the fact that, Drake London doesn't have to be the key receiver here, that now you have a strong number 2. Man, this Falcons offense is loaded right now.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's independent of, wow, it's a great opposite of Drake London. They just needed wide receiver help. If you look at that roster right now, there's nobody after Drake London. Scotty Miller is a free agent. Matt Collins is a free agent. And there's dudes I just never even heard of behind them. And there's like 3 of them. So there was not a lot there. So they needed to add somebody. And then to add what I think is a high upside kind of move here in Darnell Mooney. He's only 26. I mean, he's going to turn 27 in late October.
He's never played with like good quarterbacking either.
And he's never played. He's like the Allen Robinson of today's world. He's just never played with a good quarterback. Now you put him with Kirk Cousins in an offense, as you guys were saying, that he's not going to be the primary target for the defense, for the secondary, because you have so many other options in Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and Drake London. I think he could very easily turn in another 1,000-yard season this year.
Yeah. I think you look at like some of those Rams offenses and how they employed like speed guys, where they would have the possession guys, and then you would take these deep shots to the speed guys. It's sort of like a homeless man's version of, Stafford and, Puka Cup, like, and maybe Tutu out, like however you want to put it. And then like, I mean, I don't know. I think this offense will be really good. We can't talk about deals without talking about the Dolphins. They grabbed Shaq Barrett, edge rusher. They have a great pass rush, but most of them are hurt. Bradley Chubb got hurt late in the year. What do we think? Oh, Jalen Phillips, of course, got hurt last season. This feels a little bit like Breech, I would say, when the Bills last year, when they got Leonard Floyd as a way to sort of, Sully, if you want to go ahead, like when the Bills got Leonard Floyd as a way to sort of supplement Von Miller coming back from injury.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what this is. It's kind of weird because it's also like correcting last year's lack of depth in that regard. But I obviously, those guys are still coming back from the injuries. I think Barrett's a good move. I mean, when you have like Melvin Ingram as your edge guy last season, who looked like he went to more Dunkin' Donuts than I went to over the last few weeks, it's just not conducive to winning football for a team that we thought could win that division. It was in position to win that division, and so having somebody who's a 2-time Super Bowl champion, an all-pro, been there, done that, I think it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, and this feels like one of those low-risk, high-reward signings. They didn't give a lot. They're only paying him $9 million. You needed to add a little depth because you let Andrew Van Ginkel walk. And look, he's only a couple years removed from a 10-sack season. He hasn't been as effective the past 2 years. He's getting up there in age, but again, you're signing him thinking, hey, look, if he can get us 8 or 9 sacks, then this is a home run signing, and he could do that in this defense.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, more deals from late day 1 and then day 2, and a special edition of John Breech's Kicker Corner next.
Who's in? Who's out? Let the madness begin. The NCAA Men's Basketball Championship Selection Show on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Currently, if you see me looking to the sides, because NC State's playing Louisville on a Tuesday, 10 seed versus 15 seed game. Kenny Payne, the Louisville coach, probably getting fired. Hopefully they fire our coach, Kevin Keats. He's terrible. Kenny Payne has a .190 winning percentage in his career at Louisville. That's not easy to do.
That's impressive, but not in the ways that you want it to be.
And he's beating us right now, so go figure. I almost, and I know I'm gonna regret not doing this. I almost put in a Louisville money line, Scotty Scheffler to win the Players parlay that would basically take Scotty from 5.5 to 1 to up to 28 to 1. I'm sure I'll regret doing that. All right, more deals, including Jameis Winston going to Cleveland to back up Deshaun Watson. Now, Jameis is beloved. He is considered like the great. Every player who ever plays with him says he's the greatest teammate ever. He completely just buried Dennis Allen last year after the game in which Arthur Smith got fired. And like, I don't know, this is kind of interesting, but I certainly think if you took the Jameis Winston from college, Sully, his reputation coming out, coupled with Deshaun Watson above him on the depth chart, you would say,
the memes write themselves, I guess. It's
pretty much
very, very interesting duo that they built there. But from a football standpoint, I was, not surprised, but I was kind of hoping that they would re-sign Joe Flacco just because I wanted that to continue on, that magic from last season. But I get it. Joe Flacco is like a bazillion years old. Jameis Winston's younger, has starting experience, wanted clearly to get out of New Orleans, or New Orleans wanted to get rid of him after that debacle last season at the end of the regular season. And, I think it's an interesting, I don't even know if I want to call Jameis a high upside backup, because I don't know if he's that good anymore. He's just a really great guy and like a funny dude to watch in the locker room. But to me, right, they're going to be eating W's all throughout Cleveland. It'll be great. But to me, this speaks to just how uneasy this quarterback situation is for Cleveland on a whole. The Deshaun Watson situation just hasn't worked out. He just hasn't really been great. He's either been injured or bad when he's been with the Cleveland Browns so far. And the fact that, like, I kind of looked at Jameis Winston being like, could he start? Is he going to be, could he maybe be the guy? I think tells you more about the situation with Deshaun Watson than it does actually them signing Jameis Winston as a backup.
And Harry just put up that tweet from Josina Anderson where she talked to Jameis. Jameis basically said, hey, I want to be a starter, but I'm willing to be a backup to help people, to help Deshaun Watson. And he also said, I desire to win some Super Bowls, and this roster that Cleveland got looks like they can do it. So here's Jameis thinking he's going to win some Super Bowls with the Browns. I don't know. I'm surprised they're not keeping Joe Flacco, but I do think there's probably some politics there with.
They might be worried that people want Flacco to start.
Right. If you bring Joe Flacco in and Deshaun Watson plays horrible in week 1, everyone's going to be calling for Joe Flacco. And that is going to be a problem for Cleveland, is that you have a quarterback controversy before the first month of the season's over. And I don't think that the Browns coaching staff, the Browns, want to deal with that. So what do? You bring in Jameis, who is Brinson's favorite interception thrower in NFL history, right, Brinson?
Yeah, I mean, the Buccaneers, I took it personally when I predicted that Jameis would throw 30 picks and 30 picks in a single season. He did it the following year. They tweeted about it, and like I heard about it at the owners' meetings. But I would say that with the Joe Flacco thing, I mentioned I don't think I said this earlier, but like the contract Hall of Fame. Do we say, like, if you're doing a contractual Hall of Fame, Kirk Cousins is strolling in as your number 1 draft pick, right? He's the first guy in. Darrelle Revis is 2, but up there on the Mount Rushmore of contracts, Joe Flacco too. Like, Joe Flacco betted himself and like buried the Ravens roster for the future after winning them the Super Bowl. I don't think Joe Flacco wanted to take just total backup money from the Browns and just sit around and wait for Deshaun Watson to see what happened with him. So I sort of understand that. I mean, like, dude was living a pretty good life before.
I also think he probably liked that flexibility that he had last year to kind of survey the landscape and then pick his spot.
Yeah, like, what if he's just sitting around with Cleveland and they stink? And they can be bad.
Right.
You never know.
Mm-hmm.
They lost their offensive line coach. 2 tight end deals that we'll talk about here. Sorry, I'm probably messing up, Harry. We can do it one at a time. Gerald Everett to the Bears, 2 years, $12 million. And then Mike Gesicki to the Bengals, 1 year, $3.3 million. The Gesicki thing is fun, Breech, because the Bengals tweeted something like, they're like, hey, Jamar Chase, are you available for gritty lessons? Because Mike Gesicki famously is just terrible at doing the gritty. And so they basically it was a fun way, like 2024 way to confirm that Mike Gesicki was in fact signing with the Bengals, because they all tweeted about doing the gritty and learning how to do the gritty. I don't know. I enjoyed that one.
Well, it's funny because the teams can't tweet about the deals, and they'll write like, report Mike Gesicki's signing with the Bengals. And like you just said, that was the Bengals confirming it without directly confirming it. I really like this signing because you look at what this offense has been lacking with Joe Burrow, and it really feels like it has been a tight end. Really since 2020, it's been, I think, Drew Sample, CJ Uzama, Hayden Hurst, Tanner Hudson. So over the past 4 seasons, you've had 4 different tight ends lead them in receiving yards, and none of those tight ends has ever hit the 500 mark since Burrow's been there.
Wild.
Yeah, exactly. Gesicki's done that 3 times in 6 years. So he feels like a different type of tight end that the Bengals haven't really gone after. And man, I think he can be a big part of this offense, and you can really line him up anywhere. So you don't so much worry about replacing what Tyler Boyd was doing, because he's going to be leaving in free agency. That now you have this proven third pass catcher, and it just takes a little bit pressure off when you're looking for that third receiver now.
And not only that, I mean, you look at his numbers and say, oh wow, he really fell off over the last 2 years after going back-to-back 700+ yard seasons. But he didn't play. He was certainly phased out of Mike McDaniel's offense in Miami during that final year with the Dolphins. And then when he came to the Patriots last year, the dude just wasn't around. He just didn't play. He just kind of got same thing. He just kind of got phased out. It wasn't part of their offense. They didn't run 12 personnel nearly as much as I think we thought they were going to with Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki, and it just never really materialized the way everybody wanted it to. If you make him a piece, he's certainly electric enough and has the resume behind him to put up numbers. With a guy like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in there, I think he could go back to that for sure.
And at $3.3 million, that's just a number you can't turn down. You have to take that if you're the Bengals.
Yeah, like if I'm doing best ball stacks, you better believe I'm going with some Burrow, Chase, Higgins, and throwing Gesicki in there like a late round option because he can catch plenty of passes to be dangerous enough. All right, Gerald Everett. Any care about Gerald Everett to the Bears?
He'll be a number 2 tight end behind Cole Kmet.
It's a lot of money for a number 2 tight.
Right. I mean, a security blanket for Caleb Williams. Maybe you just lean more into the tight ends.
Maybe you feel like you can shore up your blocking too a little bit. I mean, Gerald Everett's not like some monster blocker, but I mean, certainly good enough. I mean, you feel like you can shore up your you want to have an expanded offensive line in this. Yeah.
Let's just make life easier for Caleb Williams. Like, bring in DeAndre Swift, get a second tight end in there. That's it. You're going to run the ball.
The Bears are all off-season winners. Once again, here we are. We are winners because we get Kicker Corner with John Breech. Breech, tell us what's the news.
This is my favorite segment of the podcast every week, even though it's the first time we've ever done it. We're going to start with Will Lutz, who I should have brought up on the podcast yesterday. I can't believe it because this has been the wildest sequence of free agency so far, even though it only involved a kicker. So here's what happened with Will Lutz. At 2:18 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, there was a report that Will Lutz has agreed to a 2-year deal in Jacksonville. Yay! Jacksonville has a new kicker. He's going to move his family there. They're all happy, except they're not all happy because Will Lutz is not Jacksonville's kicker now. Less than 3 hours later, it turned out that Will Lutz decided he did not want to play for Jacksonville and that he wanted to stay in Denver. So now Will Lutz is back in Denver on a 3-year deal. Again, this is the tampering period, so no contracts are signed. If you don't want to play for a team you agreed to deal with, then you just tell them bye.
So he was on Pat McAfee's show today. I just caught a couple clips, and he's like, look, he's like, I'll own it. He's like, there was a miscommunication from some – he didn't say it was his agent. He just somebody on my team that basically was like, all right, they tweeted the Texas rap sheet was like, we got to deal with the Jaguars. I would guess that it was probably leverage because apparently the Broncos hadn't gotten as high as Lutz wanted. And Sean Payton's like, F you, he's a kicker. Like, we're not doing that. George Payton's talking to the agents. So like, all right, we're going to Jacksonville. Jacksonville agrees to the deal. Then the Broncos are like, no, fine. We'll give him what he wants. And so he bailed on it. And I think Lutz said he was like, he found out that he was going to Jacksonville through a bunch of congratulations texts after people saw the rap sheet tweet. What's next?
There's nothing better than that, right? Sorry. Like I'm just saying, there's nothing better than social media congratulations being like, what? No, I didn't do that. Wait a minute, what?
It's like, wow, thanks, bro. Like, all right.
Well, and to that point, though, the miscommunication did feel a little bit like he was throwing I saw the McAfee interview. It felt like he was throwing his agent under the bus. Like, hey, man, I didn't tell you to sign off on that yet. And again, though, he has been in the NFL for 8 seasons. He's been with Sean Payton for 7 of those 8 seasons. So I think that also played a big factor. It was, hey, Sean, just give me a little bit more money because I want to stay in Denver.
Look, Sean, give me that Walmart money, dude. What's your problem? Like, what are you
doing? All right.
Also, what better place to kick than Denver?
Yeah. And meanwhile, Sean Payton's like, dude, I got an $85 million cap hit because of this Russ clown. Like,
I got to cut money wherever I can, Will. I need you to take a $100,000 pay cut because Russell Wilson's $85 million. All
right.
Next up, we have Greg Zuerlein, re-signs with the Jets, 2 years, $8.4 million. This was easy to see coming. The only reason this is interesting is because Aaron Rodgers literally went on a podcast last week and was like, all right, we need to re-sign Greg Zuerlein, Thomas Morstead. So we know who runs this franchise because less than 5 days later, Zuerlein is re-signed. The Buccaneers did the same thing. They re-signed Chase McLaughlin. Remember, after they drafted Roberto Aguayo, they had some kicking struggles for a good chunk of time. Ryan Suckup came in, kind of fixed things, but he couldn't hit from long distance. And now they have McLaughlin. So smartly, they re-sign him for 3 years. Now we have a kicking change in Washington. They had Joey Sly. They have now signed Brandon McManus. They're going to let Joey Sly walk away in free agency, which is a very interesting choice. They have about the same career field goal percentage, but I think this one came down to what these guys do on extra points. Sly missed 3 last year, hit just 91%. Brandon McManus was perfect on extra points. He struggled from beyond 52 yards, but was pretty good from inside that. Big one here, guys. Okay, you ready for this? Tommy Townsend, all-pro punter for the Kansas City Chiefs, is leaving Kansas City. He signed because the Texans just got an all-pro punter. Now, Matt Ariza is the only punter left on the Chiefs roster. He has not punted ever in an NFL game because, remember, he had the legal situation he was dealing with. He punted in 1 preseason game after being drafted by the Bills in 2022. So he has literally been out of football for 2 years, and the Chiefs are putting all their eggs in that basket right now. Maybe they bring someone in for training camp. Maybe they don't. But right now, the punt god is the only punter on the Chiefs roster. The Vikings had Greg Joseph last year. Right now, they decided to go the XFL route with John Parker Romo. He has never kicked a field goal in an NFL game. So it'll be interesting to see if they stick with him or if that's one of those leverage plays where they say, all right, Greg Joseph, you can come back, but you got to come back at our price. And then, of course, Keyshawn Nixon, not a kicker, but returning as the returner for the Packers. That guy is a home run threat, 3 years, $18 million. So I think that's another good signing for Green Bay, who has been on fire.
That's your kicker, corner, John Breech. All right, that'll do it for us. I think we're going to watch NC State get blown out by Louisville. We're going to have double digits to the worst team in college basketball on Tuesday in the ACC tournament. I think I hammered Louisville plus 9.5. Sully, congrats again, buddy. Breech, always a pleasure. Great job in the kicker corner for Sully, for Breech. I'm Brinson. We'll see you guys later.